Hello, welcome to Ryan Watts Life Coaching podcast. This is Ryan. Find us online at ryanwattslifecoaching.com. I've got a great success assessment for you. I want you to check out at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/success. All right, today for our first episode. Now, I guess I want to start by kind of announcing what my intentions are with this podcast, if you will. So I really am trying to find a way to simply just connect everyone with who I am naturally, right? It's just a way for me to connect. Really is what that is. And the other forms, scripted YouTube videos, things like that, they certainly are something that I love doing. However, I don't think you get to hear me speak in my natural cadence, not for lack of trying, but just, my natural pauses where I get sidetracked and forget what I'm saying. I really want this podcast to reflect something that someone who authentically deals with me on a daily basis would consider a recording of our conversation. And so that's really what this is. Very down to earth, and very just conversational. So with that being said, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time cleaning up the audio, things like that, the long pauses, etc. And that's all I have to say about that. Today, just something that's been on my mind this week. I want to talk about some in the mornings and just kind of, what causes our moods. So this episode's called Good Mornings, Good Starts. And I think it's fitting for the first podcast in this podcast feed. So let's talk about a couple of things here. Let's talk about, there's really three things I want to talk about as far as what makes up a good morning, a good start for really anything. But really this comes from just kind of looking at my experience in the morning. I really have come to find that I feel dramatically different on different days, right? And so sometimes I'm a little anxious. Sometimes I'm a little just depressed. Not depressed, but my energy is depressed, excuse me. But I really have tried to connect with that and really tried to kind of, practice what I'm preaching as far as trying to connect with my body and kind of take control of my nervous system, if you will. That's kind of my whole manifesto here, is that we have this nervous system that keeps us alive, but we're also at the mercy to it in a lot of ways. And the more control that we get over it, really the more fulfilling of a life we can have. So point number one, your mood arises from the comfortability within your body. So when you get up in the morning, we might notice how we feel. We might notice cracks and pains and tight muscles, headaches, things like that. And really, I think this is, for me, where I historically have found my mood really rooting from. And, it's unfortunate because I think a lot of days, especially when I drank, I would have a headache or body aches or just kind of feel tired in the morning. And it took away a lot of life. And so at the same time, I had to recognize that it was really a choice to kind of give into that. And there's things that you can do, obviously. You can change your state a little bit. I mean, the more you do this, the more you have control over it. So, you have to go into realizing that it's not going to work every time. So things like if you're tired and unmotivated, you're going outside for a walk, whether it's summer or it's cold where you're at, just walking is a natural flow state inducer, right? So you get kind of this focus, and we're just designed to be that way, right? We're just designed when we're walking, something happens in our minds. And so just going for a walk is a great example of, enhancing that comfortability within your body. You might feel strong, right? If you feel strong, you're going to feel good. You're going to your mind's automatically going to say, okay, we're healthy, we're strong. If you're feeling weak, your mind is going to make up a story around that. right? So you might be like, I'm weak. I'm not good enough. I'm tired today. Whatever the story is, right? You're going to tell yourself that. And this is hard to pick up on, but we all do this. You might be tired, right? So you might just kind of feel physically tired. And if you're physically tired in your body, right, that you're just going to often report that I'm tired, right? A lot of us don't really say, especially in the West, my body is tired. But really, that is what we're saying is my body is tired. Now, you might feel energized. And sometimes, based on blood sugar levels, on metabolism, on the quality of sleep, on just a variety of factors, you might be energized versus tired in the morning. I'm a morning person. So my chronotype just has me hop right out of bed, and I'm sort of energized, right? So sometimes that comes across as, positivity, like let's get things done. Other times it's like, wow, scattered energy that's almost like anxiety. But either way, this really comes from, at least in my mind, at a very surface level, it comes from an experience that I've had initially within my body. Now, you might feel pain-free. If you're pain-free, well, don't take that for granted, right? Whereas if you get up and you're sore, I run a lot. And so oftentimes the first few steps in the morning, I wouldn't say are extremely painful. I mean, sometimes they are if you have an injury or something like that. But for whatever reason, when I walk down the steps, the first 5 steps, I'm kind of like really anticipating the impact, right? I'm a little sore. And so I can really, again, feel my mind making up a story around this and saying, oh, well, you have to get through this whole day and you've got, how many activities, how many meetings, how many things do you have to do and you're sore. And so just recognizing, number one, when you wake up in the morning, to have a good morning and a good start, it's like, okay, how does my body feel? And what stories am I making up based on how my body feels, right? And I guess I'm really sounding like it's a fiction there, right? But the story you tell yourself is your reality. If you get up and you tell yourself, I'm weak because I worked out so hard yesterday, well, you're actually on your way to being strong, right? But if you just tell yourself, I'm weak because I'm a weak person who will never get strong, you're going to have a completely different outcome based on that story. So your mood arises from the comfortability within your body. How does your body feel, first thing? Number 2, your good morning and good starts really is based a lot on your attention, right? So number 1, mindset. What is your expectation of the day? If it's something you're excited about, you're probably going to have a better frame of mind, if you will. If there's something you're dreading, there's probably going to be a little bit more of a negative feeling, right? So what is your mindset? Is there something you're fearing? Is there something you have anxiety about? Based on what we just talked about with the comfortability within your body, is your body sore? And so your attention is on that, right? And on that story that your mind's kind of making up, that you're sore, it's going to be a long day, everything's going to be terrible. So mindset, in a very general way, is going to have a huge impact. What's your level of focus, right? So this is another thing I noticed the other day. I get up every morning and I meditate for at least 20 minutes. And there are some days where I really have to be aware of my thoughts and realizing that sometimes it is just like, okay, I have to get this done, then I have to do this. And I'm like, wow, this is not meditating, right? But the actual rep in meditation is kind of letting go of your thoughts and just kind of stepping back and watching them, because, we're not choosing our thoughts, but sometimes your level of focus, right? So imagine a funnel, and at the top of the funnel, imagine it's like a funnel, like you would hold a funnel and the pointy end is pointing down. And at the top of the funnel, sometimes our attention is up here, right? And we're looking down on our life. And then throughout the day, we kind of zoom in to the bottom of that funnel and, we engage with various activities. Well, we've all had the experience of both, getting lost in something like flow, right? That's when your attention is solely focused and you lose track of the bigger picture sometimes. Or, we've looked at all these things we have to do and it's like, where do I start? That's kind of the top of the funnel, just to kind of illustrate a point there. But if you look at that and use that analogy of the funnel in each thing you do, your ability to kind of control your focus, right? That is something that is going to be vital to having a good morning or a good start, right? So if you realize, oh, wow, I am not able to kind of focus this morning, and you're able to kind of use that funnel analogy, what are some things that you can do to help with focus, right? Well, it'd probably be like flow triggers, right? So you might read, get your body in as a willing participant, right? So you might have to do some breathing exercises. Breathing is that's a whole nother episode. But there's some things you can do there, right, to adjust your level of focus. But it starts at varying areas. I've noticed that. I've kind of a regimented life, and even so, I'll wake up some days and I'm like, wow, I'm able to focus, and then, pull back my attention and then focus on this. And other days it's really difficult to pull my focus into anything. And I'm kind of at the top of the funnel, if you will. So your level of focus is going to fall under the heading of your attention, and one of the things responsible for a good morning and a good start. The next thing under your attention is what are your reactions like, right? So if you're get up in the morning and, we've all had the experience where something's really irritating you, and you have that whole friction about how you're going to react because there's no real good reason that you're irritated at whatever's happening. I mean, these are human things. And a lot of times these things are so common, these reactions that we have, that we don't even notice that we're doing it. We just react the same way every day to something irritating. But really, we have to, again, it comes back to choice. We have to realize that we're making a choice, right? It might be really difficult. You might feel it. Your body, you might wake up and you might be tired. You might have a sore hip or something like that. And then your partner makes a comment, or your child or whoever, husband, wife, and you immediately become irritated, right? And so what is your reaction on different days, right? And realizing that you have a choice, and to kind of create some space between you and your reaction and kind of your emotional realm. And again, if your attention is on this reaction, on this negative reaction, right? You just need to learn to garner some control there. So on the other side of things, right? Some of us might deal with hypomania or mania, right? I mean, I think everybody has dealt with something like that. Hypomania is kind of like this enhanced state of, being upbeat and energized. There, you might say, yeah, I went to work today and I committed to 2 extra projects when you're already overwhelmed. That is something, right? What is causing you to react like that? So these are all examples of your attention and why it matters where your attention is to have a good morning and a good start. So now we're digging down just a little bit deeper, a little bit more personal, right? And the third thing that is really going to determine whether you can have a good morning or a good start is the story that you're kind of programmed with, right? So number one, a lot of people get triggered with the word programmed, but that's really what we're modeling this whole AI craze and computers and all that stuff with, is that we're modeling how human beings learn, right? We get programmed with things. There's kind of we have to have scripts for habits and things like that. And again, that's another episode too. However, but there's a story that you're telling yourself, right? You get up in the morning and you're like, okay, like for me, I'm like, oh, I'm Ryan. I'm a life coach. I have these other businesses that I run. I have these responsibility. I have 2 sons, etc. Those are all things that really help me keep my identity in line. So it is useful in that way. But it's not necessarily always true, right? And so a lot of times you might think to yourself, and I used to think this a lot. It's like, oh, I have to go to work today and I hate my job. And so I just had decided that, because my job was difficult, that I hated it. And I was having a lot of failures. I was also learning a lot, right? And that's kind of growth mindset, again, another podcast. But this story, right, of hating my job was really not allowing me to have good mornings and good starts. You might think to yourself, man, the kids are going to walk all over me today. It could be dealing with those unruly kids, right? I might have that with my two boys at some point in time. They'll probably both be bigger than me. But, making sure that this story, just trying to identify the story. A lot of times we don't even know the story that we're telling ourselves, right? Because it's literally all we know. But you're telling yourself a story about how you react to things. Like every time you say something like, I'm the type of person who, you've made the decision, and it's so funny how most of us, we don't realize this. And it's kind of insulting to people to point this out sometimes to them. So I'm not sure there's a benefit in it, but you get to a point in your personal development journey where you start realizing, wow, I was telling myself that I hate being interrupted. Yeah, because my reaction, right, was that I didn't have control over my attention, and my reaction was like, I can't believe you broke my focus by interrupting me. So my story then becomes, I'm a person who hates being interrupted, right? And so I will say, even to this day, I've done a lot of work here. It's still my initial thing that happens within my body is that I feel frustrated when somebody interrupts me because I'm aware of the energy that gets expended in, number one, switching my attention and then getting back into what I was doing, right? So I really try not to get interrupted, but I also have really tried to look at the reaction of reacting in a frustrated way to being interrupted. And I realized that is a choice, right? I might feel it. I might have trained my body to have that reaction, but it's not something that is just unchangeable. You might have the story in the back of your mind, my husband doesn't like me, right? So you're doing things. You're living your life based on that kind of belief, right? These stories are your beliefs. And again, I talk about failure all the time. You might hear that, and you might label yourself as a failure. And in my mind, that means that, wow, you're really making a lot of progress because you're trying a lot of things. You're learning a lot, I hope. But if you're just calling yourself a failure, and what do you think that's going to create in your life? More success? No, it's not going to create more success, right? But if you're calling yourself a failure, all of a sudden, the longer you have that belief, the more entrenched it becomes. Your life then is manifesting from that place where you're a failure. You might have one that I had. You might have a belief that I had that I'm not attractive enough. And, I did a lot of work looking back into like where this came from. I think I had body dysmorphia when I was a teenager. And it's funny, I just came across some pictures of, I believed that I was like obese, and I would look in the mirror and I'd see this, obese person. And I really could not look in the mirror. I would avoid mirrors. I wouldn't look in the mirror ever, especially in public. And it just was really wreaked some havoc on my life when I was younger. And I look at pictures now, and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was going on? But I had this story that I'm not attractive enough because I felt I was overweight, right? And then my perception was just simply making that happen, right? That's the power of our perceptions. So the story that you're programmed with, the story that is running behind the scenes, that's often really hard to identify. That is going to be another thing, right, that is going to really play into whether you're going to have good mornings and good starts. Just in review, right, the key to having a good morning and starting off the day good comes from, how does your body feel? Right? And realizing that strong or weak, tired or energized, pain-free or sore, it is a choice to define yourself as such, right? So create some space between you and the level of comfortability within your body. Number two, your attention, right? What is your general mindset? What's your expectation of the day? And, what is your level of focus, right, when it comes to your attention? Are you at the top of that funnel, right? Just kind of stuck in planning mode. excuse me, planning mode, just kind of looking at 100,000 feet at your life, not able to engage with anything. That happens. You get stuck there. And then also looking at your reactions, right? What naturally happens when, sometimes we're more reactive. And then again, putting some space between your reaction and you, and realizing again that that is a choice. It is a choice to react in the way in which you do. And the third thing we talked about is what's the story you're telling yourself, right? Do you hate your job? Well, again, you're deciding to do that. What's a different story that you could tell yourself? The kids are going to walk all over me. Sometimes kids are especially difficult to deal with. You might feel your husband doesn't like you. Well, that might not even be true, right? And if it is, maybe it's time to address that. You might feel like you're a failure without realizing how much you're learning by these quote-unquote failures. And then you might not feel attractive enough. And certainly that is probably not true. We tend to be our own worst critics. So some keys here to have good mornings and good starts. And what I recommend is whatever the state of your body is, strong, weak, connect with it. Don't identify with it. You're still you, even though your body is energized or tired. Your attention. How can you adjust your mindset? What mindset would you like to have? Where is your focus on the funnel scale? And then how are you reacting? And what's your story? And if the story is creating a context in which you don't want to live in, what can you do to change it? So that's the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to kind of just empty out my head in this way. Hopefully this was valuable for you. I urge you to go to ryanwattslifecoaching.com/success to get your personal success assessment. It actually is. It's funny because I created the test, obviously, and I went to take it the other day just for fun. And, I was mindful of how the test is scored, et cetera, and I actually found some useful things in it. I found that when I took the test, there were some issues with my mindset. And I went to the mindset page and found that some of the feedback in there was very useful in that moment to be able to help me adjust my mindset. So, again, I just want to kind of illustrate the value of that tool, but you can get that at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/success. I'm Ryan. It's great to be with you. I look forward to the next time that we chat. And I hope you all have a great one.